Welcome back. It is day 3 of my 7-day mindful eating challenge. And that means we're nearly halfway through the challenge. I've experienced some unique and aha moments over these last few days, and I hope you have as well. In this video, I want to focus on better digestion and how we digest our food. You know, with the Olympics just barely starting, it's Super Bowl weekend here in the States, and you may have thought, what an odd time to choose to initiate a mindful eating challenge. And I disagree with that because food is part of our culture. Food is part of our communal experience. And what better time to be more mindful about your choices and being more conscious about what you are eating than a celebratory time. Now, none of those events are on my radar right now because I've got a lot of other things going on in my world. And just as a reminder, we're here because we are tired of the endless diet cycle and we don't want to feel guilty after every meal. We no longer want to battle our cravings, and this challenge is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to move beyond any restrictions and simply rediscover the joy of eating and respecting the wisdom of our bodies. During these 7 days, now I'm participating right along with you, and we are focusing on mindful food choices. And this means that ideally we are savoring each bite because we are choosing something that we want to eat. It sounds good, it looks good, smells good, whatever the case may be. We are choosing to eat that food. We want to make conscious choices, and by learning to better understand our body signals, that's why I've incorporated in a book that focuses on emotional eating. And whether men, women, we all have an emotional response to food. It's very much part of our psyche. It's part of our makeup. The whole goal with this 7 days, there's a lot that can happen in 7 days, is that we want to honor our body's wisdom, and as long as you are still breathing and have a pulse, we are aging, and we want to age well. If you don't know me, my name's Tiffany. I am the founder of Anderson Therapeutics. I am a health educator, I am a wellness coach, I am an alternative healthcare provider, and my Aging Well channel is all about my holistic approach to living well, aging well, and better managing chronic conditions. I'm exploring this mindful eating on one hand because I love to cook, and as I've gotten older and I've changed my diet a number of times across my life, food has become medicine in my world. And so food has extra special meaning to me as I am utilizing a lot of the healing powers of food to better manage my health. I also want to remain very active, and so I'm very conscious about the choices that I make and the foods that I eat. Emotions are a big part of this challenge because every food choice that we make is typically driven by one type of emotion or not. And we have a certain feeling that we may want to experience after we have a certain food. Now, a lot of these go way back to childhood. If you think about perhaps a family favorite that you always had at a holiday meal, or perhaps it was a dish, a meal that was made by someone that you absolutely adored. There are so many components. The layers of emotions there are very deep, very long lasting. And if you haven't snagged my gentle guide to emotional eating and better understanding how emotion drives our food choices, check the description below. I will put that free PDF in the description. And let me tell you a little bit about these last few days, specifically yesterday for me. And I would love to know how you are doing. What have you experienced? Have you noticed anything new? Share that in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. Something not incredibly surprising, but much different than I've had in the past, came up with a incredibly strong craving that came about due to a fairly stressful, somewhat heart-wrenching work event. I also, besides what I've told you about my credentials, who I am as a as a adult, that I work in the field of public health. I am out in the public as and working in people's homes. And I encountered a situation that was very overwhelming and took me by surprise. It was the first time that I was having an assessment and going over paperwork with a family who was interested in participating in our program. And the information that came about due to the very personal questions that take place with my work, that there was a very heavy and emotional response. I only had a half hour between one visit and then into another with another family that I had been working with for quite some time, and heard another very heavy, very different, tragic story as I was helping both families, wanting to share resources, support, compassion, be empathetic, be an active listener. I was also very aware of where I was and if I was grounded, if I was actually giving myself that barrier that is necessary. Because in my line of work, and for anyone who is a carer, whether you are still raising children, you are taking care of an older adult, you perhaps are doing both, maybe you have a sick partner or spouse, maybe you're like myself, aging solo and managing your own chronic conditions. If you have a job then as well, teaching, nursing, any type of social services, even in industries that you don't necessarily think of as carer, there are situations that come up where compassion fatigue is the heavy hitter of the role, and something that is very present in my day-to-day. Needless to say, as I finished with both appointments, I was at a part of the valley. I live in the city of Salt, and the Salt Lake Valley isn't incredibly large, though, because of how broad and wide it is and where I live. I knew that in evening traffic, I had at least a 40, maybe 50-minute drive getting through traffic, and we are in, you can maybe see the ridiculous amount of sunshine we're having right now. It's weird. This is February. It should be cold and snowy and blowy outside. It's in the high 50s today. Very strange. We don't have enough snow. The air then is very gunky. The pollution is high. I have asthma, so breathing has also been a problem. So see the pattern coming up here. So compassion fatigue, I'm feeling a lot of empathy, I'm concerned, I want to help, and I also know when I've done my job to the best of my ability, then I need to separate and remove. This was a Friday. I'm coming up on, now it's my weekend. And I had dinner in mind, though I also felt an incredible hunger. And I knew immediately that it was an emotional hunger because I had already had a snack about an hour and a half prior to the first of these two visits. And I didn't have a snack with me. I often make sure that I have ample food with me on busy days when I'm eating out of my car and going from place to place. And in my mind, I thought, what would be in my best interest right now? That is one of the techniques we talked about last time, the pause, the reflect, and giving myself that space. I knew that before I got into all that evening traffic, I was going to use the restroom. There was a Kroger, a Smith's nearby. And so I went in there, and as I did, I decided to wind down, ground, walk around, picked up a few produce items, and the bakery called me. And that Okay, so picture the bakery. What called to me and is one of my all-time favorite hankerings, love, 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 way beyond guacamole. If you saw that avocado that I was going on about in a previous video, I was looking for sourdough, though they had those fresh French baguettes, and you know the they're what, 3 feet long or something, a foot and a half, I don't know, a good sized baguette, okay, and it was on sale for $1.49. Price didn't really matter at that point. All I knew is that I smelled it. I gave the little outer package a little squeeze, and that immediately went back into my cart. I knew exactly that is what I wanted. And I recognized, yes, it was an emotional craving. I didn't read through my guide. What I did on the drive home is that I put on my favorite community radio station, knowing that they would have a wonderful Friday night, it's kind of a jazz blues type of a program, and I relaxed and I savored and I ate the entire baguette on my drive home. Later, then, as I was winding down, unpacking my car, checking the mail, all of the things that you do after the end of a long work day, and I was considering what I had planned for dinner versus what I truly felt was in my best interest, knowing that I just ate an entire loaf, a baguette. It was a lot of bread. I didn't feel heavy. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel necessarily bloated or anything, though I knew I was definitely full. One thing I did, I use a papaya enzyme. Now, there's all sorts of digestive enzymes out there, and I am not a clinician. I am a health educator. This is something that my doctor recommended to me to help me digest. When I travel, I don't often have the food choices that often fit with my meal plan. And so I always have papaya enzymes with me when I travel, and when I got home, I ate a couple of the papaya enzymes. I had some tea, and after about an hour and a half, I realized I still wasn't hungry. And I wanted to better understand that bread craving. And bread is something that I really enjoy. There was a time when I was misdiagnosed as gluten intolerant, and I missed out on all of the lovely bread, which I adore, for many years. And some of the gluten-free substitutes are fine. I love to cook. I explored all of the recipes, though. I'm very happy that bread has a place in my life. Now, I pulled out my handy dandy Constant Craving A to Z by Dr. Doreen Virtue. I highly recommend this book, and I searched recently on, of course you can buy it at a bookstore, you could find it at the library, you could go on eBay, you could go on Amazon. It's readily available. Now, bread, there's a whole series, a whole selection of bread, depending on what you're craving on it too. Now, this was just a plain kind of and I considered this a toasted bread simply because it had that, I wanted that crunch, I wanted that biting through the actual crusty outer edges of a traditional baguette. The probable meaning, the emotional probable meaning of this, according to Dr. Virtue, is feeling like progress is thwarted, frustrated. That definitely fit the situation. It was overwhelming, and I was grounding. That is where this mindful eating challenge is about honoring what our body is telling us, what our emotions are telling us. And I wasn't starving, though I knew that I was only about an hour and a half from eating dinner anyway. So I simply chose to meet that need and ate that food, and I don't feel guilty about it. I enjoyed the food. It tasted delicious, and I paired it with music. I savored it. I ate it slowly. I've done the binging and the gorging. I've done the stuff your face and you hardly realize what you've eaten. This is where mindful eating changes all of that. All of that. The affirmation then for that bread craving. I move toward my goals with trust and steady effort. I read that later in the evening and I felt very pleased knowing that I had done my best work with these two families and gave them the best resources possible, and I will follow up with them next week. Job done. Well done, me. My point with this being, by honoring our bodies, this is how we are learning to identify with all of the responses. Women especially are taught way too much about beating up on ourselves, especially with our relationships with food. And having a healthy relationship with food needs to usually be taught, it needs to be role modeled. And in our society where the media bombards us with a ridiculous amount of messaging about what we deserve or what we earn or what you're worth, and it's ridiculous. It's psychological blabber. And that isn't wisdom. That's just a marketer wanting you to spend your money. Mindfulness and being wise, being adults, and taking responsibility and being accountable about our food choices, that is powerful. And that is where then, with that respect, that we can let our bodies know that we are listening and that we want our bodies to heal, we want our bodies to be well, and we will nourish them properly in order to have a healthy partnership, body, mind, and spirit. After I reflected on this meaning with the bread, then because I wasn't really hungry, though I knew it would be a good idea to have something, I don't want to say substantial, but another type of a more whole food. I eat a whole food, plant-based, oil-free diet. I've mentioned this in previous videos. Whatever your meal plan is here, it's you do you. This way of eating is something that I adopted in 2016, and it's worked remarkably well for me. And I decided to just have a baked potato, and then I also had a little bit of the leftover sweet potato chocolate pudding. And I felt that those two were solving and answering the emotional needs I was having as I was winding down. I didn't want to eat anything heavy. I wasn't in the mood for a crunch or a salt or anything like that. I wanted simple. I wanted something that was really easy to digest because I was tired. The day ended up being more emotionally taxing than I was prepared for, and we can't be prepared for those things that just happen on the fly. They just happen. So that gave me a more mellow evening, and I wound up having an incredible night's sleep, and I slept a little bit longer than I normally do. So then, what have you noticed? Are you keeping a journal? I have just decided to keep mental notes, and as I said, using the pause and the reflect, calling on my guide as needed. And for today then, talking about digestion and the power of the slow eating. Now you can get really extreme with this. You may have had the experience in a college class or seen this in films where someone takes a raisin and asks you to hold the single raisin, and you smell the raisin and you bite the raisin and chew it slowly. Okay. Yeah, I get it. And Eating a little slower simply understands the mechanical needs of our body. Think back to health class. Maybe it's been a while since you've had a health class. When we are hungry, when we are craving something, when it's time for food, we salivate, we drool. And that saliva is a powerful fluid in our body because it's only it's 98% water, okay? Though there are enzymes in saliva. Digestion starts in the mouth. And so, in order to digest food properly, we need to chew our food well. I had a physician years ago tell me, mainly when my son was a teenager and we were going through that growth stage when it was a ridiculous amount of food to try to keep this kid full. All of you parents maybe can relate. You maybe just have these kids that have hollow legs and it seems like you can never keep them full. With that, my doctor had said, because I didn't want him wolfing and gulping his food because that would mean a bellyache. And we've all experienced those when we get excited and we're just shoving food in our face and then it either gets stuck in our throat or we get heartburn or we get a gut ache or on and on and on. What this physician had told me is that you should be chewing your liquid food and drinking your solid food. Meaning, that's ideally how much you should be breaking down. So people who are doing a lot of juicing and drinking a lot of their calories, if you are just sipping and swallowing, and there's no saliva in there, that's making your stomach and all of your digestive organs work a lot harder than they are designed to. And with any of our solid foods, we have teeth for a reason. we need to break the food down into smaller pieces. And yeah, that can seem kind of annoying and, counting your bites and all that type of thing, though. Slow down. Slow down and savor. And make sure that by the time it's in your mouth, you're enjoying it, and then it is ready for you to swallow and let your stomach and all the rest of your organs process that food effectively. That is the power of slow. That is better understanding digestion from just the start, just from your taste buds, not only that, all the way down to your gut, and how then our food can better serve us. Not only from the visual plating or the aromas and everything that goes into the beauty of food, having those nutrients do their job and actually heal and nourish our body. So consider those as you are moving forward into this weekend, whether you are in the festivities or having parties, the buffets, going out to eat, going to a game day, tailgating, whatever the case may be. Distinguish hunger from cravings. Be mindful about your choices. And I'm going to share one more goodie from the book, Constant Craving. I'll just do a random, oh, this is a good one. Okay. Macaroni and cheese. I've eaten a lot of macaroni and cheese in my life. I did the high protein diet. I had a lot of this as a kid, the whole craft type of thing. My son loved this. Here you go. If you're having an insatiable, emotional-based craving for macaroni and cheese, the probable meaning for this: wanting reassurance and comfort, feeling attacked, alone, or powerless. Sit with that. Does that resonate? Does that fit? A possible affirmation then, if that is the case: I have the strength of divine spirit within me now. I am willing to release all fear of owning my power. I am guided as I use this power and strength for the good of humanity, including myself. That's pretty deep, pretty heavy, considering it's macaroni and cheese. Interesting book. A really, really interesting book. You know, the mindful eating tools that I have been exploring over the past 10 to 20 years have taken very many paths. And even in the years that I was following a high protein diet under the guidance of my doctor, and we were even exploring different types of eat right for your type that was supposed to do with the type of blood that you have. That was just past bizarre. We've all followed, most of us, especially in the West, especially women, followed really silly diets. I've done those. As I have investigated, learned, explored, and wound up using myself as a little lab rat, knowing what works, what doesn't work, improving as I go, that some decades stick out to me. In my 30s, that is when I learned and realized how hard carbonation is to digest. I didn't put myself through college until later in my life when my son was in school. That's when I had the oomph, the courage, and everything to go back to college. And when I learned how acidic that soft drinks are, soda, and that the phosphorus alone in soda interferes with our body's ability to absorb calcium. And it can also lead to leaching calcium from healthy bone. That was shocking, and I quit drinking soda. That was horrifying to me, and I'm glad I did. I don't miss that at all. In my 40s then, I also learned a lot about, since I went into menopause quite early in life, and that it changed my cravings a lot. I discovered another book. This is still when I was following a high protein diet, and I have always had problems with sleep, especially when I was younger. And there was a book called Potatoes Not Prozac, and I learned a lot about the humble little potato and the power, mainly in the peeling, that there is tryptophan in a potato. And by having a small baked potato, and I typically eat them plain, that having this about an hour or two before bed, you sleep more soundly, and actually it promotes healthier digestion. There are so many nutrients in potatoes. There are many people who eat potatoes and that's about it, and it's fine. The starch solution, you may have heard about a gentleman in Australia, he goes by Spud Fit. I'm not talking extremes here. I'm talking about there are medicinal aspects to food and inexpensive, beautiful foods like potatoes. And I began using this because I can't stand medications. I am such an anti-med person. There's only a few that I take under, direct guidance with my physician, and I do my best, especially to manage pain, that I do everything that I can to avoid any type of numbing, doping up, any of that type of thing. And when I began using the potatoes in the evening, I slept more soundly and nightmares diminished. It was remarkable, the changes that I experienced. And I mean, if you're going to try something new, if you're going to explore something rather than picking up something in a bottle or another prescription with a list of negative side effects, there's no negative side effects here. Now, you might not like potatoes, you might have, allergies, all those type of things. I'm talking about those who you can eat. You might probably like potatoes. they're neato. They do many things for you. All right. Talked a little bit longer than I had planned on. This video is almost 30 minutes now. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Give this a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Come back on the 7-day. I'll let you know what else I've learned, and I would love to know, where are you at on your mindful eating journey? And share your goals, share your intentions below. I want this to be welcoming, supportive, and insightful. See you next time.